Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America. I am your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning, everybody.
All right. Once again,
Welcome to the holiday season.
Yes, very much so.
You can hang them Christmas lights. No one can argue now.
Yeah, and if you're in retail, you've been doing Christmas stuff since sometimes in July or August. Depending upon the retailer. I don't know. I mean, we in our neighborhood here too, we have some people who are almost year rounders. They have some lights, and I don't think they ever take them down. They don't necessarily turn them on all the time, but they don't have to go through that drudgery of taking them down, putting them up. I think they just kind of keep some of them up, like particularly if they run along the roof line, the ridge line, and then they just it comes on, and then they don't worry about it. So we're I think my wife and I are kind of like, okay, she's always been in charge of decorations, and over the last few years it's been kind of like, it's just the two of us, there's a lot of work, what are we doing, you know well, we can go other places and take in the festive spirit elsewhere. And it's it's just, it would take her hours to set up the Christmas tree, and she's just like not really into that most of the time. It just it ebbs and it flows.
Like we love Christmas and we go home to Christmas for all the way to Louisiana and whatnot. But my house is a parole office all year round. There's nothing on the walls. There's no decorations. We've never had a Christmas tree. We had a little one that was sort of about this tall for a little bit. It wasn't a real tree. Obviously, it was a little fake one. But I think one of our moves, we said we don't have room for it. We don't have room for Christmas anymore. And it just like we just never have done it. Our view is sort of, we're going to do Christmas when we get home, and so we don't do it till we get home.
Yeah, I don't know. So we have. I've basically grown up with artificial trees, and going back to the days of when artificial trees were silver.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you ever saw them anywhere, but there was a rotating light color scope, and so it'd have like blue, yellow, green, red, and it'd just go around this, and so I grew up with that, and then that tree, my parents never replaced that tree. They kept that thing out, and it's like every year you'd set it up, and there'd be like, it just gets a little more raggedy, a few more of the little silver, leaves or whatever.
Fell off, yeah.
They just ever fallen off, and it's like, this is like a person balding. It's just,
yeah. It's about right.
But I don't think, I guess it never occurred to my parents that maybe they should be upgrading the tree. And then when I found out you could get them, artificial green trees, I'm like, oh, well, this is like a revelation. That's all I ever knew was, I knew live trees and I knew this silver tree. So, we've had these artificial green trees, and we have had this, I think it's about 8 feet tall or whatever it is, that we bought 20 years ago or more. And so it's a good sized tree. And every year my wife's like, oh, we just should get rid of that tree. And then, but sometimes she's like, oh, let's just pull it out and set it up and do that. And so I'm like, that's why I said, I'm not going to get rid of the tree. If you actually try to go and buy another tree, the prices of artificial trees is through the roof. Post pandemic, they cost a ton of money. I was like, it's just shocking how much money you have to spend on an artificial Christmas tree. And I'm like, no, I think I'd just rather keep mine.
Yeah.
And I don't have
come back.
I don't have little kids, or nobody's pulling out the tree, so it's like, it's pretty safe. Take it out of the box. I'm sure these stories are everywhere, or people do this. I was at an event the other night, and people were talking about Christmas memories, and one guy was saying that how he'd gone up and when he was younger and cut down the tree and was hauling it through the snow and all this stuff, and I guess he was a young married man, and then he got it home, and then he realized that the tree was basically bare on one side because he'd been dragging it through the snow. So he basically had denuded the tree on one side. So he says, he says it was almost impossible to keep the tree balanced because it lost that one portion. He says so that part always went to the wall. It always tried to face the wall, but it was always a tricky little thing. He says, but I guess maybe he had some little kids. Nobody ever really
get somebody to tear the other end. Bring your buddy.
Don't they put it on sleighs or do something or get other people to help you carry it? Yeah, it's like, yeah, think about that, folks. If you're ever out Christmas tree shopping and you're out in the snow, if you're dragging it along, chances are you're going to lose a lot of branches. Along the way. So yeah, but I love this is a great time of year. Nevertheless, we kicked it off with Thanksgiving, and so now we go fully into it, and I unfortunately fully embraced Black Friday for the first time in years.
Did you go shopping? You actually went?
We didn't go. We don't go. No, look. We're I still have memories of Black Friday shopping. Maybe people out there have that where they line up at 4 o'clock in the morning or earlier, going for doorbusters that there were only 10 of anyway, so you never get them unless you had been camping out for like the previous day in the frigid cold. And so I had finally given that up at some point in time anyway. But online shopping, oh man, this is just really hard.
It's a little too easy, isn't it?
Yeah. My wife, particularly, I mean, I'm bad, but my wife is just like, I put some things in the cart, please order. So I'm constantly like, okay, double check everything, click, order. So Amazon got a fair chunk of business from me this year compared to the recent past. But what we wind up doing, what I actually look for on Black Friday, or maybe a tech toy or here and there, a gift, but I actually buy discounted gift cards. Like a lot of these restaurants and things like that, knock the price of their gift cards down. And so I was like, hey, look, we eat there anyway. Well, why not go ahead and buy cards, for 20% off? That's worth it, So that's easier on the budget in the long term. So that's what facing those crowds, I mean, you think about the pandemic and how the pandemic supposedly had killed malls and all of that stuff. But malls are back, fast and furious. I mean, people crowd malls. It's kind of like the old days now.
I was thinking about that the other night. I was going past Fair Oaks out in Virginia. Yeah. And, it was like the traffic slowed down near the mall. Like you had to, it got jammed a little bit, not long, but a little bit. And it's like it was all mall traffic. You can't attribute it to anything else.
Yeah. So, our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, AKA the Mormons. So every year they started this a few years ago. They started this giving machine, which is basically they partner with charities around the world, and you go to this machine, which is a vending machine, and they refined it over the years. Now I heard this year it's even more electronic, but you have things that tie in, so you can. It's kind of fun because. Most of the things are like $25, some maybe $50, but you're supporting a charity. So you can buy a goat, or you buy, you do these kinds of things for people in third world countries, and they go to these charities. And so what used to happen is that you go ahead and put your credit card in or whatever, and then you select the button, whatever, and there would be a little thing that would come down. Now, on purpose, it would not open. You couldn't grab it. It basically was just there for an inventory control or whatever, and then every once in a while somebody's supposed to come by and basically refill the machine if any slots got emptied or whatever. Apparently now it's just, I don't even think they're doing that. I think they're just doing it digitally. But it's amazing how much attention that's getting. But they had one in Columbia Mall, which we went to last year. We thought, okay, we took middle of the day. There was nobody there. We bought a couple of things. This year, it's only in Tyson's Corner, and I'm like, I am not going to Tyson's Corner. I mean, I love this machine, but I am not driving from my home to Tyson's Corner. It is bad enough as it is during the day. You add Christmas season to the mix, and it's like it's game over.
Yeah,
I can't do it. So we were supposed to take this trip. We were going to be broadcasting today, And so what had happened was that my son came down with hand, foot, and mouth disease.
Oh, wow.
So that's a viral infection.
Yeah.
And so my 1-year-old grandson, who just turned 1 here on December 1, he got it from his cousin, who they all had the same babysitter, and we think the babysitter gave it to him. And then he passed it on to his mother. And my son is he can be a very obstinate kind of a person. It's like, he calls him up. I had that when I was younger, right? So I can't get him. We're like, no, that's not the case. You didn't have it when you were younger. Just be careful, because it is a viral thing. And then he got it. And it happened to happen right around Thanksgiving. And we're like, my immune system is on the low side now. So I don't like to take chances. This thing isn't going to, this thing, getting it wouldn't kill me. It would just make me miserable for a few days. And I was like, I don't need to travel to get a disease.
Right.
Yeah. Look, sure, I'll go out there for the birthday party, even if you're still maybe slightly contagious, because I just love gathering in germs, and so it was a hard decision, because we had made these plans. We were packing already, and we actually were prepared to go to part of Utah. Was actually go to a giving machine in Utah, when I was at a local mall near my brother-in-law's house. It's like, great. Just one little thing after another. It's like, and we thought, well, we'll be on the safe side, and we'll go back to Utah at another point, because the 1-year-old, he won't know if we show up, a month or two later, and if we even have another party for him. What's he gonna know at 1?
Right. That's right.
Just give him food, and he's be fine.
That's right.
And,
he's good with a second birthday cake.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Which I'm sure he just probably eats with his hands and just does this anyway.
Heck yeah. We all should.
Yeah. So that kind of you always have, every time you have a trip like that, if you cancel a trip, it's like, okay, it's like I had to hit the button to cancel the airline, but I get everything back. Then my wife had to cancel the car rental, and then I had resume my newspaper delivery, resume my mail delivery.
Yeah.
We canceled the parking spot I had at the Fairfield Marriott over at Dulles Airport. There's a bunch of different things I had to remember. What else did I make sure anything I had paid for or reserved, make sure I cleared the deck, so my life is at least normal until we decide to go again.
Yeah.
But that's what happens to you, right? One thing kind of has this little mini domino effect. All right, yeah, and it's getting colder too, right? We're seeing much colder weather, and so it's it's fine. I have some people who I had some guy the other night with this event with that. He's like, he's from California. He says I've never had a Christmas below 50 degrees. I'm like, well, guess what? You're going to get this one.
Yeah, welcome to the club.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit of a wake-up call for that. All right, the other thing too is it is not exactly an exciting National Day calendar thing. It's National Package Protection Day, or National Roof Over Your Head Day, I think it was. The package protection thing, I thought it was this is what intrigued me about this, is that it became a national day. So you have to pay. You pay and you apply to get this thing. It's basically a sponsored day. So if anybody out there has ever thought that these days are just organic, or something like that, that there's some special, they are, this is all a PR thing, there's companies. So the National Package Protection Day was established in 2016 by Ring Camera.
How about that?
I guess so basically what this day is it's actually the National Anti-Porch Pirate Day.
Right.
That's the real thing that goes on here.
That must be a big problem. Have you seen the videos they're starting to have? I guess people have these like paint, powder bombs in them. You pick up the package and it goes. It puts
really?
It's pretty funny. They all get mad. They start cussing at the house that they're trying to steal from. What are you doing? It's like keeping you off.
I'm going to sue you because you did this to me after I tried to steal your package.
Yeah. I mean, they're just offended that somebody would try to stop them from stealing the package.
Yeah. No, see, this world is so upside down, Brian. I don't understand it.
That's some entitled stuff there, man. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
say, you're interrupting my theft.
Yeah. Anyway, and people who are porch pirates, they just do it. I mean, there's they don't think anything about it. They don't think what they're doing and what the reverberations are, for the people, that they're stealing the packages from.
That's
I
right.
think they probably think, oh yeah, well no, Amazon will replace it. Well, not necessarily. I don't think, Amazon cannot be held liable once the package is delivered. Just that would just cost them, millions and millions of dollars, and that makes no sense. It's like, if you're going to have a package delivered, try to
Well,
figure
it's
out.
like, the other thing is like, so sort of the implied of this is Amazon's rich. They can handle it. Okay.
Right.
Well, but, Amazon is employing, hundreds of thousands of people all over the country. Right. And the reason that they're able to do that is because they're not rich. They don't operate as rich. They operate a very, it's a lot of products moved at a very small margin. So when you start taking the margin out, it doesn't take long for it to become unprofitable, and all those people lose their jobs. So I mean, you don't have any more have a right to steal from Amazon than you do from you and me.
Right.
It's like, just because you see them as this big corporation doesn't justify stealing from them.
Right. And that's the same thing. I mean, this is, the thing that happens with the self-checkout, theft kind of thing. People, self-checkout, which, I've used a number of times in places, and for me, it's convenient. But I understand, when they start pulling them out after they've tried it, because too many people have stolen too much stuff from the Targets and the Walmarts and the Costco's or whatever, because
Man,
they
I'll
all
tell you what, if they run the self checkout out of business, Brian is not going to be upset.
Yeah, I know you're not on the bandwagon for this at all. You've made that very clear before, and I have other friends who are very much, like that. They don't like that at all. I like it
But
just,
but not by stealing them into
yeah,
penury.
no,
That's
but I
not
mean,
what
I,
I'm
I
for.
I like it because if I've got 3 items, I don't want to be standing in line between 5 people with 25 to 30 items. Okay,
Right. I got you. I got you.
that's the only thing is, I like to be able to whiz in and whiz out because I'm only using self checkout for 10 items or less or whatever it is. So, it's and it speeds up the other lines, in general. But yeah, no, but people, that's the same thing though. People think, okay, these corporations are big and rich. They won't miss, it won't matter if we steal a box of diapers and some other things, but shrink like that adds up. And who pays for it? You, me, and everybody else, because in order to maintain their margins and stuff like that, the prices, they have, that's a part of the cost of doing business that is factored into the prices. You want to help, kind of keep prices stabilized to a certain extent. Stop stealing stuff.
Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
quit stealing stuff from these people. And then with Amazon, they do huge volumes and they make a lot of money off of package, whatever they sell. Not as much. They don't sell as many books probably as they used to. They just, they sell tons of everything, but it's their cloud service that makes them the most money. This is where the
Yeah.
money is. That's growth area from them. The other stuff they sell is kind of a peripheral thing. I mean, they have Amazon Prime. You can get the video stuff and all this stuff. They're smart about the marketing. They don't have to make money off of certain things so they can juice other things.
Right.
And overall, they're an extremely profitable company. But when you steal from the package side, it's like you're not helping things. Like you said, they employ all these people, and believe me, I mean, I think it too, is that there's automation and AI and things like that is going for some of those jobs, and you make it a heck of a lot easier for them to lower their overall cost. If you keep stealing from these guys, they'll look
Right.
for other ways to replace humans, and then you basically have helped fuel the unemployment issue in other corporations. I mean, how they I see stories now where holiday hiring is way down. I keep talking about how I'm on Nextdoor, and we have people who comment this is like, they've always been able to get seasonal employment. Not the case this year. It's been hard.
Yeah.
They've been applying everywhere. It's like, kind of, just anecdotal things that come up here and there, that things are definitely different than they used to be. All right. Now that I've spent half the show, no, doing this, we've got a lot of other things to cover. So, Russia peace plan. Uh, they have spent hours and hours and hours, trying to negotiate this thing. There's still a kind of an impasse. Uh, I guess U.S. is kind of pushing for Ukraine to accept that eastern part of Ukraine as just Russia controlled. And that's about 250,000 people, give or take, I guess, apparently that live in that area. Zelensky doesn't really want to give that up. I'm just not sure how long this is going to take to slog out here. Whether how much leverage Ukraine has in this. It seems that Trump continues to listen to Putin, or at least Russia, in an effort he wants to have this thing cleared off his desk and move on. And it's probably, I think he's, as we said before, he's getting weary of the whole situation.
Yeah, I think he is getting weary of the whole situation. I think that the basic facts are, it's like if you're going to push Russia out of that, what's it about 200 miles into Ukraine, right? The east, or you're going to basically move the eastern border of Ukraine 200 miles to the west, smalling down your Ukraine by 200 miles of mud, basically, and the poorest part of the country and so forth. But there's some of it is even land that the Russians don't control right now. I mean, most of this is territory the Russians control. So if you say you're going to kick them out, that means you got to kick them out. You got to uproot them, right? Which is going to take a lot more men and material than anyone has been ready to commit to this yet, and probably in the near and long term, for that matter, to do it. Okay, but I think the Europeans are getting fed up with it too. Maybe they have some new resolve that they haven't before. But right now, I think you could get them to stop shooting, but that's about all you can do. The good part of it is, Trump is doing a thing that would end the suffering. Trump says there's 5,000 to 7,000 people a week getting killed in this war, in this, the fighting. And the bad thing is, you're saying it's okay to go conquer land from another country. Right, just go. One sovereign nation can just invade another and capture its land and keep it. And supposedly, that's what the UN and all this is set up to stop. Was just one country taking over another country. Right. That's why we went to war for Kuwait. Right, because we just said, that was another. It involves oil and whatnot, but that was but both countries involved oil. If we would have left Iraq alone on that, we would still be doing oil business with Iraq, right? We wouldn't have lost that oil, So, now you're in a situation where, this is a straight deal of we don't let you invade and take land. So, if we do, then the Ukrainians are right to argue for strong security guarantees. And, Russia's going to probe that. Russia's going to see what it can get away with these new security guarantees. So, you're basically choosing the terms you're going to start the next war under, right? So I don't know. It bugs me that we would let them keep land that they conquered. And it really bugs me that we'd give them land they have not yet conquered. I mean, I say Ukraine would give them land under these deals. So I think the thing is probably to really focus on, and Trump knows how to do this better than anybody we've had as president in a long, long time, is to make Russia hurt, make them pay for this, right? Make them, make this an economic albatross hung around their neck, and let them deal with it until, their people get enough of not losing the war on the battlefield, but losing the economic war, and sue for peace.
Yeah, I mean, if you get China and India to quit buying the oil, that would make a big difference.
Yeah, that's right. India getting it and selling it to others too.
Right. Yeah. So Russia keeps getting propped up in that way. But there's been economic and human harm on both sides of this, and you kind of wonder. I mean, we're we're less than 3 months away from the 4-year anniversary of this.
Yeah.
So there's been a very high cost to this war. As we've said before, I mean, the resiliency of Ukraine has been, just amazing. I never would have foreseen this at all with this, but yeah, something I get. But I guess I've also seen articles or stories pop up where, as a result of this last proposal uh, that was put forth, that some of these European countries are basically looking at bulking up their defense because they're
Yeah.
concerned. They're starting to see that, like, maybe we are getting to the end of this conflict, but it may be one where Russia comes away with more than they deserve, and can and then figures out they can
Yeah.
exercise whatever muscle they have and
Yeah.
come after us. And
Yeah.
so now they're thinking about, yes, very
And
much so. So they can go and do that. And so I think that I thought I hadn't really thought about that a whole lot, but I think it's right for them to consider that. I mean, if you're within a stone's throw from Russia, you'd better be keeping your eye out for this.
Yeah, you got to make Russia hurt. You got to make Russia hurt in a way that its response is not nukes. So
Yeah.
it's a dicey thing. So cripple their industries, like you say. They're it's nearly all extraction. The entire economy is minerals, oil, all that kind of stuff. So if you can get people to not buy it or to not use it or whatever, you get some real economic leverage, really able to cut off their money. That, to me, that would be the best choice.
All right. Next up is immigration. So immigration is back in the spotlight big time. We had this horrendous attack on two National Guardsmen from West Virginia. One, 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom, died from her injuries, propagated by this Afghani national who drove all the way from Washington State, some 40 hours, and shot these young guardsmen. And so this has ignited another fury over immigration policy, giving Trump some leverage, I guess, in terms of looking at what he can do. I mean, they're going to look a lot closer at the Afghan immigration, but he's also taken a hard line on Somalis in Minnesota. Trying to put the heat on Ilhan Omar and stuff like that. So it's been immigration is very different under Trump than it is under Biden. How far he can go, I don't know. How far should he go? I don't know. I mean, they've cleaned up a lot of things. I think the border, crossings are probably way down, so that I'm not sure how much more we can do except continue to find those that are overstayed their visas or here illegally and whatnot, and then send them back home, which is a kind of a continuing thing and an ongoing battle between the liberals in these cities that hate ICE and accuse them of all kinds of stuff, and so the lack of cooperation by a lot of these places as well. But what are your thoughts about what's happening here with all of these things?
So on a few fronts, I think he has really hit on something with the Somalis. That was a deal where Betty McCollum, who was a congresswoman, and Jan Sikowski, who was in Congress, she was from Betty McCollum I believe she had Omar's seat before Omar. Like, that seat didn't get any more leftist because Omar was elected, by the way. It was already really, really leftist. And Jan Sikowski, whose husband is the guy who, you remember in the 2016 campaign, these leftists kept showing up with thugs to fight at Trump's rallies, right? They're trying to start fights in the crowd and all this. He was the guy who ran that operation. So these are not nice people. These are dirty, low-down politicians. And Betty McCollum's reasoning was, if she got these Somalis here, that she could serve as long as she wanted to, and she did, and she served until she was ready to retire, and then Omar got it, who is a representative of them. They're not, I see these things like people say, oh, they've got to assimilate. Well, people assimilate at different rates, right? I don't know about requiring people to assimilate. If you're willing to accept the, what happens to you economically and so forth, if you don't assimilate, then, that's a choice that you make, right? I don't know why you would move to another country and not make any effort to be part of the life of that country and, try to, keep your own life here. But, part of it I do see, because like I'm always looking for, Tony Chachere's sauce and, good gumbo mixes and stuff. It's hard to find, right? But I want my home country stuff here and, way far from my home country, so to speak. It's a little bit different, and nobody cares what spices I use on my food or whatever, right? I mean, it's a low consequence question, but but the fact is, everybody, all the people who come here, they want a little bit of home with them, right? But so how much home? How much is acceptable? Okay, so in the case of Somalis, the answer is kind of none. Like we're bringing Somalia. We're going to live in Somalia. And relocate it to Minnesota, which is, I mean, that's essentially what they're trying to do. They're electing their own people. They're, operating as they want. They deal with just their own justice system, basically. And we got to decide as a country, are we going to let little countries operate within our country, and you have the colony in Texas, you have 120,000 people, most of whom are here illegally. They're living in this big tract of land north of Houston, and they basically have no law enforcement. They deal with their own stuff, and, the people just let them be. So, it's like how far does the government writ go? I mean, that's getting challenged on all kinds of fronts. It's the same as, the seditious six statement, where they're telling these Democrat politicians are telling soldiers not to follow orders, or to question all the orders and whether they're legal and whatnot. You can't have the military operating like that. So it's like how what is the power of the federal government? Where does it start? Where does it end? That question's getting asked a lot, and the Democrats are asking it very seriously, because they don't control the power of the federal government, and they're looking for all kind of ways to defy it. I saw you had on the resist on the topics, right? I mean, that's what they're doing. They're saying, we're going to, we reside on the land known as the United States, but we're going to do things our way without respect to the laws of that land.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think the assimilation question is tough. I mean, because I don't want to deny people of with their cultures for bringing some of their culture here to the United States and things that they're comfortable with, and then having some of their customs and whatnot. To me, where I struggle is just kind of, I think what you're alluding to is how much of this do we allow, where it starts to grow beyond, say, the cultural things, the food, the gathering of people, going to church or whatever,
Right.
community gatherings and stuff like that. It's
what virtue do we allow it or not allow it at all, right?
Right.
I mean, what's the power? What gives us the power to say where do they go to church, and how much do they, what's the law that allows us to do that? I mean, it's murk throughout this issue. It's
right. Oh yeah. There's no doubt. My concern is that will do the communities grow so large that that they start to say, we are going to be basically, like you're kind of saying, their own country within our countries. Like, no, this is the United States of America.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. So So that I think that raises an interesting point. Maybe the borderline is, when you start imposing whatever you brought here on our people. Like, for instance, not everyone. There's probably some Republicans in Ilhan Omar's district. It's not just all Somalians.
Right.
So, I mean, there's probably not many. It's in, inner city Minneapolis, which is Minneapolis is a liberal city. Minnesota is a left of center state, but the answer is not zero. There are some Republicans there. So, if you just say, okay, you now live in, Somalia North, right? No, they don't, right? They live in the United States and they have to be protected, they have their property and rights protected the same as anybody else who lives in the United States, right? Because you're grafting something on to us. You're not, you didn't take over a country here. You're living in a country that had laws before you came, and you're obligated to follow those laws. So, it's a tricky question, but you don't get to tell, you don't get anything beyond democratic rights. You win elections, your leaders are in charge, over those people, those Republicans in Ilhan Omar's district.
Well, I mean, I think back upon the early, stages of America with people coming through Ellis Island, and they're coming from all over, and we didn't take away their culture. The Italians, the Poles, whatever. They came in, Germans, and and there are communities across America where these communities thrive, right?
Yeah.
And they run for office. They're Americans. They get American citizenship, and they do this, and they're good, law-abiding American citizens. They have, maybe you wind up with, you run for office, and you find you're going to get, 5 Italians on your city council. Well, so okay, everybody voted. There's a free and fair election. That's fine. And then but it's just the things have just changed. I think over the years, where because of illegal immigration in particular, you just have these amalgamations of groups that are like, they have no loyalty or fealty to the United States. They're not U.S. citizens, so they didn't say, I'm going to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and so there's so many issues. As you said, it's murky all the way through. It's there's probably no easy answer on this as a result, but I'm just kind of, you just kind of keep that watchful eye. I mean, look at Great Britain. I mean, they've had, they've had a lot of Muslims move into, to the UK, and they really didn't do anything about it, and it's grown to be a huge problem. There's a lot of radicalized Muslims in Great Britain as a result of lax immigration policy and things like that in Great Britain, and it's like you're trying to get rid of, them now. Oh, good luck with that.
And nothing done to assimilate them. It was pretty much, bring your culture, we'll just be what you are.
Right. And they wind up living, in what, so housing out there, they're called estates, apartment complexes and things like they use that terminology. So a lot of these people wind up in these estates, these places where it's some of the worst of the worst. And so you bring these people come over, and then they bring up, they have, a lot of them have large families, and not hard to radicalize people who live in basically slums. They don't, job prospects are low. The government doesn't really do anything to help them get on their feet and become independent and do that. And they just, the sentiment towards the government, that how we hate it, how, something just grows and grows and grows. And young people are very, impressionable. And so you just, they've just had this powder keg of things going on over there. And it's just something you have to watch out how you handle this. And, the UK has not handled theirs well at all. We've done better, but I mean, we can always do better.
We haven't done great,
No, we haven't done great, but we're better than they are.
And that looks strong, right? The way that they are, they're overthrowing the existing way of being, right? And it draws a lot of young people. It's like one of the things, Trump's approval ratings have fallen a little bit. They're not as, you see these, they're 31%. They're not 31%. They're mid to high 40s. But they're falling, and part of it is because young people don't like his Israel policy. They think that he's too pro-Israel. Well, I mean, Israel is, our most valuable ally now. I mean, it's not even close, and much more valuable than the Five Eyes and all that kind of stuff. But it's like half the people under 40 want to dump them. Like, we don't want to speak to Israel ever again. I mean, that's nuts, and it's not going to happen. And no matter who gets elected president, they're good. It's like, Walter Mondale said, he goes, you come in with all these plans of all these things you're going to do. He said, and then when you get elected, they give you what they call the briefing, where they tell you who has what cards all over the world. And then you say, okay, most of what I wanted to do, I can't do. Right. It clearly is not going to work. So, that's what happens here is like, whoever becomes president, they get the briefing. They're going to say, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to deal with Israel because, we can't do it without them.
Yep. All right. We'll go to a special election that occurred. So Matt Van Epps managed to keep the Mark Green seat, the Republican seat. The polls that they were throwing out there had shown this to be a very, very close race. It turned out to be not so close, but it was closer than what Green did, 2 years prior over the last previous election. And Trump won. I mean, Green had 21 points, and Trump won it by like 22 points or something like that. So, and Van Epps comes away with a 9% victory over a loony lefty. You listen to her and it's like, is this the AOC of the South or something? It's like, she's crazy.
Yeah, but she had a ton of money behind her, and all these special elections, everybody gets all weird. 22 all the way down to 9. Oh no, Trump's not on the ballot. It takes about 8 points away. Automatically. May take more depending on your situation, but it's at least 8 points if you're not there to vote for Trump. There's too many of these 0 for 4 voters, right? They haven't voted in any of the last 4 elections, but if Trump's on the ballot, they are there front and center voting, right? And you learn to capture that. You learn to get those people to come out for these specials. You'll have the world beating a path to your door, right? But this guy won by 9 points. He made the case. He was outspent 6 or 7 to 1, something like that. He did about as expected. He didn't do any worse. He didn't do any better. I would have said it was about 9 or 10 points. I mean, that's about what you can expect in this climate.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel with the mood of how people feeling with things like this, that, this is not an unsurprising result in terms of the margin. This is not, like you said, Trump on the ballot and everything that we were feeling from 2024 and all of that. So, it's a different scenario. Hard to really make that comparison. It may actually, when, the next time around, it may actually revert back to the mean, or whatever, back, and go back to where it was supposed to be. Democrats, they're pouring a lot of money into this. They're trying to use the affordability, crisis and things like that. Things that have been, look, President Trump is going to have limited ability to do a whole lot about affordability. I mean, Joe Biden kind of put us, way behind with his policies.
Right. And he Trump, really did. I think that's one of the things that people are underestimating is how far behind they put us. Right. I mean, he was not just a poor president. He was a terrible president, especially for the economy. And they spent all this money. They spent like $4 trillion in the last year and a half of his presidency trying to revive the economy. So what happens when you spend government money to revive the economy. Once the government money goes out, the economy contracts, right? So you have to go fix the problem and try to generate growth at the same time. Trump says by the time they get where they can produce reliable economic numbers again, or Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, actually said that growth will be at or near 5%, which we haven't seen in this country since the first Trump administration, and before that, since the Reagan years. So you'll have 5% growth. You already have wages climbing at about twice the rate of inflation. Inflation, they say, is at 2.7%. I saw somebody else had it at 3%, but the government says it's at 2.7%. He says, Bessent said that would be 2.4 by the time they could get some stats out. I think if they could really do this with those kind of stats, I don't know what they're waiting on, but anyway, I think it's on the upturn. You can see the price of gas going down, and that really uplifts everying, right? If transportation costs go down, they're not even, it's like we talked about inflation. You're slowing the rate of growth, right? That's kind of the best you can hope for, right? There's always going to be some inflation. You don't even really want zero inflation, right? That's not even desirable. So you always have a little inflation, and you now have a chance, but you're having wages are growing faster, jobs are getting produced, factories are opening, there's foreign investments pouring in. They're right about all that. This is 1981. The first year after Reagan was elected, you had to fix all the damage Carter did. It was 24% interest rates. Everybody, turn your thermostat up, drive 55, gas lines. Just really the country in terrible, terrible shape. And so it does take a little while to revive it, to fix it. And I think that, I think they're on schedule to be about where Reagan was and get it fixed by the first quarter of next year, which would be pretty good timing considering you got midterms coming up.
Yeah, I'll wait and see about that 5%. I mean, we'll see if they can achieve that number. That'll be great.
He says it's already over 4.
Yeah, so. Those numbers are hard to achieve, but they can be had. Inflation is just going to be, it's going to be a lingering issue, but just not to the degree it was under the Biden administration. I mean, I think we're just with everything that has happened post COVID and with Biden spending just way too much money, with everything that trying to get that number back down is just become very very hard to do. But look, if we can get down to that 2.5% level or just below, we can live with that. But it's part of the gas prices have relatively stabilized. It just depends upon the area that you live in. Some parts of the country are seeing sub $2 gas, and the gas in my area it just basically has been stuck between 290 and 320 or whatever, depending upon which station I'm at that I pass by. But it's just been range bound. The thing that people look at though is, it's that there's pocketbook issues. It's like you look at milk, bread, eggs, meat. Meat's been a big issue because the price of beef has just gone sky high. And that's not Trump's fault. I mean, that's this is something, the supply and demand, and there's not enough supply. Even by lowering the tariffs, it's going to have a minimal effect, on how that works out. So those are tricky things, and hopefully maybe by the time election rolls around, the midterms are on 2026, we have stabilized things. We've got unemployment, right in the range where it keeps things from getting out of hand. Inflation is maybe at that 2.5% level or below, and other, everything else has just been,
wage growth climbing, wages.
Yeah, you just see that. You see wages going up and things like that. So if people, it's really, psychologically, how they feel about it. Where's their paycheck going and all this stuff. I think the thing the Republicans, what they got to get over here too is that, we've got we've essentially got a healthcare vote supposedly going to come up in sometime this month, and the Republicans have just got to come up with a really good plan to deal with all the misinformation, disinformation, and lies of the Democrats about healthcare and how it affects people and stuff like that, and make people understand that these horror stories are way overblown in terms of what it was. It's like, take it, the Obamacare, all this, the subsidies, the enhanced subsidies, they radically altered the landscape, and Trump is basically, he's trying to compress that and say, like, we can't spend that kind of money subsidizing these people who a lot of them can't afford to pay those premiums. Why are we paying all those, 80%?
Right. That's I don't understand why they don't make that argument more frequently. You're talking about a upper middle class subsidy when we're 38 trillion in debt. The party that claims to be the party of the poor is the one saying, hey, give our upper middle class friends a break on their health insurance. So just buy cheaper health insurance somewhere else.
That's what they did before.
Yeah, that's what they did before. I mean, just get out of the way and let it take care of itself. Right? We don't need more of you. We need less of you.
Yeah. thanks to Obamacare and the subsidies, it basically shifted people from having these cheap, affordable plans to other plans that were much more expensive that were being mostly funded by us, the
Right.
taxpayers. Right? It's
Right.
like
And also you got, in the old days you could get, if you're 25 years old, what do you really need in the way of health insurance? You need something that covers you. You get up to, you get cancer, right? Or you get in a terrible car wreck and you got a bunch of multiple health problems. But most of the time, your health problem is, you got hurt playing, beer league softball, right? So you don't really need, that kind of thing. You should pay for yourself. You can, or get some little, like Aflac type of, bridge money for, right? But the idea that like that needs, you need this full comprehensive thing when you're 25 is not right, right? You can do with a much skinnier, what they call a skinnier plan. And now they don't want to allow that. They want to make everybody, get buy the full thing so that you can have your pools and so forth. But if this is one, if you just get out of the way and let the market take care of it, the market will take care of it.
right. I mean, when I was younger, I mean, my philosophy in general was before I got married was that like um, all I really needed was something my health I figured was going to be pretty good. Just make sure I have, catastrophic, you don't
Right.
want, in case something, you always have that in there, but take a high deductible because that
Right.
pushes down
That's
the premium,
exactly. Yeah.
right? And because
And it's like,
chances
and
are,
it's like, and at that time, like that was before you had walk-in clinics everywhere.
right.
It's way easier to live like this now because, you can just walk in and get health care most of the places in America.
And a lot of them are associated with hospitals and hospital programs
Yeah.
and things
It's
like that.
the health care is just fine. And if you
Yeah.
don't think it's fine, and if they're not adequate to something, like I remember when Lori had her stroke, we didn't really know what was wrong with her. So we took her to a urgent care and they're like, go over to the hospital. This is out of our league. Give them this piece of paper. They'll move you to the front of the line. And they did. They dropped everything and helped her because the urgent care, because they trusted the word they got from the urgent care that this was a priority case. So, it's out there. Those people don't want to get sued. They're doing the best they can to be accurate and full and so forth. And, that makes healthcare affordable. But if you keep these old timey rules grafted on it, you're going to be dealing with the same problem. They're going to need subsidies forever. And I know that there's, probably 20 House Republicans right now that are ready to agree to subsidies. But you got to go work, Speaker Johnson's got to go do the work and muck through that list and make sure those people did not mess this up.
Yeah. No extension of the subsidies. Okay.
No extension of the subsidies. That's got to be a line in the sand.
That should be a non-starter.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No extension of these. Don't give the Democrats anything on this. I mean, this doesn't do us any good at all to do this. We have got to fix the system. And this is one of the ways that we do it. It's a small part of it, but like you said, we basically created this middle class subsidy. It's like, this makes no sense. And the Republicans have let the Democrats walk all over them that, all these people are going to have to pay so much more money. It's like, what were they doing beforehand? Most of them were paying their premiums, or they were taking, instead of buying the platinum plan or whatever, they were taking the silver plan or whatever, the gold plan, So they were matching their finances and premiums, up. Whereas under the subsidies, there's no incentive, basically.
Right.
Let me go for the highest one because the subsidy is going to be so good. I'm only going to be spending $500 out of my pocket or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like,
and what happened to college when they started lending you money to go to college? What happened to the price of college? Did it go down? No, it did not.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother can of worms, right? I mean, the whole thing about is like if you pulled the plug on that, you would see a completely different system, right?
One that's much more attentive to the needs of the students and the people paying the tuitions.
Yeah, I swear that higher education, it's all about the grift.
It is a huge grift. It is.
It's just and then so those are things. It's you try to educate people about this stuff and they don't understand, and yet I don't know. We're not we're not Einsteins particularly, but we understand that there are things here that are just shouldn't be this way. It's like if you take this away, people aren't going to go broke or anything like this. They will adjust, and the system will be just fine. And you will actually, education, get a better education system. Healthcare, you'll get a better healthcare system. But people don't understand that. The problem is that once you give it to them, trying to take it away,
Right.
it's hard. So
That's right.
that's always going to be a problem. Um, Venezuela, uh, gunboats, drug boats. Is it a war crime? All kinds of stuff going on here for this. I don't know. I mean, look, I mean, I'm not sure that every single boat is a drug boat. I mean, I think they found that about a third of them, or 27% of them, have been supply boats or whatever. But still, look, if to me, one of the things is like, if you're drug runners, don't even try this.
Right.
Now,
That's what they're trying to do, is to say, get out in that water. This is what's going to happen to you. And I
right.
think, I'm all for that. This stuff, you're killing people in this country. You have whole cities where you can't go into the city because, there's all these people, tripping out on drugs and so forth. And, it's easy to get that misery reduced sharply, right, by just doing a little work on the other end. And I think Trump has got them backed into another 80-20 issue where they're defending drug trafficking, they're defending bringing fentanyl and cocaine into the U.S. There was no one survived. This thing about the second strike, no one survived the first strike. They didn't kill anybody with the second strike, and even if they did, so what, right? It's war. Like Obama, his thing was to bomb funerals, right? There'd be a funeral of some leader, of Hamas, or of ISIS, ISIL, or whoever he was fighting that day. And they would go bomb the funeral, and then they would bomb it a few minutes later, because that's when all the people who cared about those people came to check it out, to see if they were really dead and what was really going on. And so you'd get all them too. So, that was deliberately waiting for more victims to strike. Right. And no one said anything about that, and they shouldn't. Right. That's what fighting wars is all about. We're trying to kill the enemy. Right. And what Trump has declared is Venezuela is attacking us, that they have gone to war with us by by cheating on our elections and sending over these drugs, setting up this drug cartel that operates throughout the Caribbean. It was like, well, the drugs don't really come from Venezuela. They come at the direction of the leadership of the Venezuelan government. And, if these leftists can prove that I'm wrong about that statement, step right up. But none of them have. None of them even tried, because they know that the intelligence Trump has on this is right.
It's put a lot of heat on Maduro, so it's kind of
exactly, and that's what we're trying to do. I think Trump has told Maduro he has until Friday to find another place to live and
find another country.
Yeah, I mean, he's offered some places he could go where he'd say, "You go there, we won't bug you, but get out of Venezuela, you're not in charge anymore."
Yeah,
and then he has till Friday to make a decision.
Well, that would do a lot to be able to get started on fixing the corruption in Venezuela.
Yeah, and the corruption, they all the like Smartmatic machines were controlled out of Venezuela. Like, they want to get to the bottom of the election, of the election fraud. They want to stop that once and for all.
All right, we're going to round this stuff up here with some last minute subjects here, the final topics. White House has launched a media bias tracker. I think this is hilarious. I just for the two of us who are in the media bias, criticism.
Yeah, I've been in that business our whole lives. It's like,
I hope it's not going to put you out of a job, because
well, I told David Bozell, I said you should call him and offer to help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's White House things. It's like, how's this going to go? For the first 2 weeks, they're going to have a lot of copy, a lot of examples, things they've been storing up for years of media bias. But media bias is a story you cover in real time, right? As we know, it's like, I always laugh, like at the, strategic plan time rolls around. We're in that right now. Everybody's, doing their strategic plan. Our strategic plan is to find media bias and report on it. You know, what media bias, whatever comes up, right? We don't know. We don't know what the stories are going to be. I mean, you can you can plan some projects, and you can say we're going to prioritize some things over others, but it's mainly you're waiting on the news, right, to drive the event. So, you know, to me, it's like, just help them do it, right? Because they'll lose enthusiasm for it, and the people who won't be, who will be doing it, they're not going to be as good at doing it as like either you or me would be doing it, right? Just because we've done it for our whole lives, we understand what it is you're looking for, you know. So that's what I think that, you know, I'm glad they're doing it. You know, I think they're perfectly justified in doing it, especially the way that they've been treated by the media. And, you know, punch back, you know, put them on trial, because so much of what they say is like this whole thing about the second strike and, you know, Hegseth yelling, kill, 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 and all this stuff. And, you know, the New York Times has come along and said the Washington Post made all that up. So when you have the New York Times drubbing the Washington Post over media bias, I mean, you know, there's definitely a story there to be covered, and I don't blame them for covering it.
Yeah, I mean, the White House is more likely, I mean, to have kind of policy wonks and interns and whatever doing this, people without a lot of experience.
Right. It's going to be some 24-year-old kid who's, you know, doesn't know what they're doing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and for MRC, I mean, you don't necessarily need the credit. You can just feed them stuff, and they can put that out, and you'll know it's yours anyway, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you'll get wider exposure if you can get those stories out via the White House.
That's right.
You know,
at some point you're going to hit an MRC link when you're going to read about that stuff.
Absolutely. All right. Governor Tim Walz. Man, we dodged a bullet with this guy.
Yeah.
$1 billion in welfare fraud in Minnesota, and his excuse is, well, we were too well governed.
Yeah,
the thing is
that might have been it.
The Washington Post ran an editorial about this, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, okay. So the Washington Post is criticizing Tim Walz. It's like, you know, they're kind of like you've got to give me a break here. It's like, how can you say this?
Yeah, this, you know, you're right. We dodged a bullet with those people. Imagine like having voted for him and Kamala Harris.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't really think about this, did you? You know, but you know, this guy that's like he's off his rocker, and you know, that's what happens when you go full blue. You know, there's no checks and balances in Minnesota. It's just like however extreme they want to get, there's no real breaks. So it's interesting to watch like how far they end up going and what rat holes they go down. And, you know, and I was just saying, these people, they're operating autonomously. And the easiest thing to do if you're Tim Walz is probably to just give them a big stack of money and let them work it out amongst themselves. And that's what he did. Now, you know, if you're a taxpayer in Minnesota, you're like, no, why do we have to give them a big stack? What about being Somalian earns you a big stack over, you know, being, you know, me? You know what I mean? So I don't know about that.
I think the Post said it was 86 individuals.
Yeah.
$1 billion.
Yeah.
Over $1 billion.
86 people. That's pretty good.
Yeah. And I think the Daily Signal was reporting that the whistleblowers, they had their X account suspended.
Yeah,
too. It's like, right. You know, it's like, oh, this is so wrong. And Walz, you know, you're the governor. Okay, look, it's bad. Take the hit and tell people you're going to fix this. You're going to take immediate action. You're going to fix this. You don't tell people it's because you were so well governed. That's why this happened. I mean, this makes absolutely no sense at all. I mean,
that's right. But the thing you said in there is like, it is true. The accounts were suspended by X. You know, Elon Musk saved free speech when he bought X. There's no doubt about it. Like, very few people have done more for America than he did by taking that one action. But they're not done, right? The process of converting X from a, you know, dungeon of censorship, you know, policed by mad liberals to ultimate freedom of speech it's a work in progress. There's still stuff there to fix. I'll say this: when you bring it to his attention, you usually get some action. He usually says, "Oh, I hear you. I'll go see what's up here." But it's not fixed. There's still people on the inside uh, of X doing the wrong things.
Yeah, it's not perfect. It
Yeah.
will take some more time before we see better results than this anyway. All right, in your backyard, the Virginia GOP has got some issues. I guess the chairman resigned,
Yeah.
and there were calls for others to be forced out as well. I
Right.
assume that I assume this is as a result of the Spanberger, the whole sweep there that they had in this last election. Um, I don't know. I mean, Virginia politics better than I do, living there. It's not the first time they've had some issues. Like other states have gone through this as well. But do you have anything?
RPD has been a train wreck since at least the George Allen administration, like the early 90s. They haven't been able to raise any money. That's part of why Tom Davis got out of Congress is they you could tell that like the state infrastructure was falling apart, and the state was moving to the left, and so what you'd have needed a real efficient battleship to head that off, and we went the other way, right? We got way worse in organization and so forth. So now you have some people out there like the Virginia Project, and some like people that are really hardcore conservatives that are trying to raise money. And I think Nick Freitas is probably our best electoral hope for a long time in Virginia. He's kind of understood by both sides a little bit. But yeah, it's right now it's at a precipice. If they don't choose right here, Republicans could be a rump party for 50 years. I mean, they've got to find effective leadership this time.
Yeah, and I used to go to the RPV conventions, and they were pretty lively affairs and everything like that. But I'm not sure that I would go back today until things settle down and they show that they have actually competent in what they're doing here.
Yeah, that's right. It's been bad for a long time, and it's got to be turned around. I'm glad to see that other people see that it is as urgent a problem as I do.
Yeah. All right. Michael and Susan Dell pledging $6.25 billion for the Trump account. So those are the baby accounts. That's a huge jumpstart to these accounts. I don't know what the long-term effect will be. This is something we won't know. We may not really understand exactly how big this might be in our lifetimes ourselves. But for those, they're going to be targeting lower income zip codes, I guess, and all this. And the Treasury Department will, I guess, will give each baby born $250 or whatever it is to jumpstart that. I mean, I think that's fine. I think that's great that in this case, it's not taxpayer money. It's that you've got some wealthy people that are stepping up and saying, we love this idea. We're going to give you some money to get it to people. So hopefully that'll help them on their journey where it might have been a little more difficult in the past.
It's huge that because they're trying to get it where you own the money, so it's not the government's money. Like Social Security. Like when I die, they don't get nickels don't get any more checks, right? There's no whatever I built up is gone, right? But with this, they're trying to you accumulate and build wealth. Okay, so you have the money, and so when you die, your family has the money. So then that generation dies, and their family has two stacks, right? So that's where this is aiming. Great for Michael Dell to see this and do this. Apparently, he may do it again. He seems to have a lot of cash to throw around on stuff like this, and he doesn't do a lot with the organizations, donating to the think tanks and whatever. So this is a good way to get in on the president's side without getting in to the. It's kind of hard to argue against little poor kids getting money from rich guys, right? It's another 80-20 issue, but they will argue against it. The Republicans will, the Democrats will come up with a way to say that this is terrible for America. The other thing is like he's a leader. Other people may step up to do this. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, I think it was Obama. They had a thing one year. If you want to give money to address the debt, right? And just on top of your taxes, if you want to just donate some money to help America drive this down, maybe it was W. You can donate. They got $130 total in America. 130. That's 3 figures. Okay. This guy, donated billions and says he's willing to donate billions more. So, things are turning around on that score. People are seeing that, if we don't take pride in the country and love it and do things to set it up for a bright future, then we won't have it. We won't have that bright future.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the Dell stuff stepping up, maybe I mean, look, Trump has got he's got lots of these billionaire supporters, I mean, Peter Thiel can come in there, and David Sachs could come in there.
Yeah.
I guess Sachs is part of the administration at this point. Who else, Andreessen Horowitz, people. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people in tech and things like that could, put money into it. A Tim Cook, a Mark Zuckerberg.
Andreessen, and that was the guy's name.
Yeah, it's Andreessen. It's for Mark Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah.
So Horowitz being the son of David Horowitz.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things out there. The Mercers, conservatives, lots of money. That could be huge. I mean, you could just build up this huge kitty and just start setting this up for newborns, and that you own it. And that's a really important point, because as you were talking about Social Security, your spouse has survivor benefits based on, but set by Congress is that when you die, your survivor, the initial payment for that is $255 set by law. Hasn't changed for decades. It's really crummy. But for a guy like Spencer, who had built up, a decade's worth or more of Social Security, all his goes away. If he had control over that, his widow would have had control. That money would have stayed with them. I mean, it's thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars when you think about it, right? I mean, the employer
allowed her to make her next move.
Yeah, it would have been a big difference. I could have invested that, and the return would have been there. So that's a whole nother thing to discuss on another day, but it's kind of along the same lines. All right, and then finally another one up your alley. Lane Kiffin has bolted to LSU. Is that good or bad?
Well, I mean, he's a good coach. I'm interested to see what he will do there. We really haven't had somebody who's innovative on offense. I guess we had a guy the first year or two of the Brian Kelly regime. They had a guy named Mike Denbrock who went back to Notre Dame, who was pretty good. He was great, but he was pretty good. But most of the time, we really have not been all that creative in terms of offense. We had the brief Joe Brady interregnum, which they won the national championship 2019 with Joe Burrow. It was probably one of the best college teams ever, certainly the best of the century. I don't think, people are trashing Kiffin about how he did it, but the kids got to sign up for their second semester, right? Their January semester now, right? I mean, they got to know where they're going to college, and where he went, had impact on a decision where a lot of other people were going to go. A lot of kids were going to make their decision based on what he decided. So they all need to know, is he going to go? My question is, and I still have not received a good answer to this, why couldn't they just let him coach through the playoffs? LSU was willing to do that. He was willing to do that. He had stripped all the offensive staff, right, and took them all to LSU. So, they had no offensive coaches. Now he's let one of the offensive coaches go back and help him out through the thing. Why couldn't they just keep him, right? LSU needed to know, and all those players needed to know, was he going to go to LSU? If they could have had the answer to that question, then they would not have had to, they could have made their answers accordingly, and so forth. I thought Mississippi, there were real jerks about this. I don't see why they couldn't let him coach the games. That's what the players wanted. That would give you their best chance at winning the national championship. LSU was fine with that. LSU is going to pay him $1 million if Ole Miss wins the national championship. That's part of his contract. So LSU is not against him having success with the team he had. So, he's getting blamed for a bunch of stuff, and people are like, "Oh, he's always been a jerk." He may have always been a jerk, but that doesn't not mean he was a jerk this time. And I don't think he was. I think Ole Miss was the jerk in this situation.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that, because I mean, yeah, you just need to let him coach through the playoffs. Whatever that could be, one game.
There's some good reason for that, because
Yeah.
he said something in his deal about with appropriate guardrails. Now, I don't know what the guardrails need to be. What are you worried about him doing? I don't know. And maybe there's some real good reason why you just cannot do that. But no one's told me that good. I've been a sports writer, going back to the 70s, and no one's ever told me a good reason why he couldn't finish the season.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like you said, I mean, Kevin had to make a decision, because part of this thing too is because of the transfer portal, that got
Right.
first,
Transfer
right?
portal, NIL deals, all that stuff.
Yeah. So
you
you
got to
have
have those people in the spring to go to spring training. So you put in your offense and all that stuff then.
right.
So,
Right. So, all right. Well, good. We've had a good show here. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. And we will see you back here next week.